and then I can copy the ID from Darwin, and then we're going to paste that in because this is the ID we want to call. So we'd send that to our friend here. It's going to tell us our ID, and then this is going to be our call button. So we press call. Recently, I've come across several tutorials on video chat type applications. So in this video, we're going to go over how you can create your own. Now, I've got a lot of this code from some of these other tutorials, so I'll leave a link in the description so you can check out those original ones. And then we're just going to kind of build off that and give it our own little twist. So without further ado, let's jump right into this. All right, so I have a few things here. I have a server.js that is just blank right here, and then I have a front end folder right here, and that is a create React app, just blank right now, with all the stuff that you would get with that, so an app.js and whatnot. So that is our setup for now, and yeah, let's start coding this up. So we're gonna start by adding a few things. So we'll just go right here in our root right now, and we're going to add a few things. So we're going to go npm install, and let's go express. We'll go socket.io, and we will go nodemon, and I think that is all we need. So let's add those. All right, so once that's done installing, we can move over to our server.js right now. So in order to do this, let's start by bringing in a few things. So we're going to be using our express here. HTTP we're going to need to make that call. We're going to create an express instance right here, calling it app, and we're going to create the server. And yeah, our socket is going to be working like this. So let's see if we can run our server here. So let's come down here, we'll bring it down, and we'll just paste this in, and it's going to get our server going like that. Okay, so then if we come over here, and let's first go over to our package.json, and we added nodemon, so we can just run this and restart automatically instead of having to run it every time. So inside of our scripts right here, let's add another script. So come down here and in here, and we'll just say dev. So if we run npm run dev, we're going to run nodemon and get our server going with that. So go ahead and save that, and then come over and we can run npm run dev, and hopefully, actually we got to save this. Save that first, and then there we go. Our server's running on port 5000. So let's give ourselves a little more room and start coding up the actual backend here. All right, so the first thing we're going to want to do is create a connection through our socket here. So we're going to go io.on, and then we're going to say on connection. Okay, and then it's going to take a second argument, which is going to be our socket. And then we're going to have an arrow function here. And we're going to say socket.emit. And the first thing we're going to be emitting is, we're going to call it me. And that's going to be my ID, socket.id. So how this is going to work is we're going to connect the two people through their socket IDs. So we're going to need to retrieve that. So we're going to get my socket ID from there. And then we're going to come down underneath this, and we're going to socket.on. And we're going to have to disconnect at some point. So we'll say on disconnect. And we'll have another arrow function here. And we'll say socket.broadcast. And we will say broadcast.emit. And this will be on call ended. Just like that. All right, so that's good for that. Let's come down below this here. And the next thing we want to do is have the ability to call a user. And we're going to call them by their ID. So let's go again, and we'll go socket.on, and we'll say call user. And then we'll pass in the data. And again, an arrow function. And inside here, we're going to say io.to. So this is the person that we want to call. And we'll say data.user2. to call, which we'll pass in from our front end. And then we'll just say emit, and we'll say call user. And then we're going to pass in the few things that come from our front end. So we're going to want the signal, and that's going to be data.signalData, like that. And then we're going to say who it's from, and that's data.from. And then the final thing here is going to be the name. So we'll go name, and we'll say data.name, just like that. Okay, so that is looking good. And that's all we have for our call user. And then we just have one more thing we want to add, and that's going to be the actual answering of the call. So when we get called, we're going to have to answer. So we'll go socket.on again, and we'll say answer call. And we'll pass in the data from that, just like above. And we'll say io.to, and we'll pass in the data.to, so wherever it's to, and then we'll say .emit, and we will say what? Call accepted. Call accepted, just like that. And then we'll pass in the data.signal that we want to pass along. All right, so I think that is basically all we have for this backend. So it's pretty short. All right, so we actually got to change something up in our server.js. This is kind of an older way to do it, but it'll potentially give you some CORS error with the newest versions here. So instead of this socket here, we're going to come in, get rid of this IO here, and we're going to go const IO, and then we'll require the socket.io. We're going to pass in the server we created up here, and then we need to pass in the origin. So for us, our front end's running on localhost 3000, so we're going to pass that in, and then the methods are going to be get and post. So go ahead and add that and change that up, and then save that. But most of the work will be done on the front end. And for that, we're going to need to add a few different things. So let's come over. Let's add a new window here, and let's cd into our front end. And from there, we're going to add a bunch of stuff. All right, so we're going to install a bunch of things here. So let's go yarn add, and I'll just paste these in here. Okay, so let's look at what we got right here. So the first thing we got is simple peer. This is going to be our peer-to-peer connection that we're going to need. And it's a wrapper kind of over WebRTC to make things a little simpler for us to work with. Then we got socket.io client rather, and that is going to be connecting our front end sockets to our back end. Then we got some styling stuff with Material UI core and Material UI icons. And then in here, we just have React copy to clipboard. So I think that is all we need. And that copy to clipboard is just going to be used to pass our ID from one user to the next. So that is how we're going to do that. And let's just run it. All right, so that looks like it installed good. We can get rid of this here, and we can just close this up for now. So we're done with this backend here. So we can get rid of that. We can get rid of this, and let's come into our SRC in our front end. Now I've added some app.css styles here. So those will be in the link in the description, just to make things look a little better and style it up a little nicer. But yeah, nothing crazy there. And now let's come into our app.js. Now this is where everything is going to be done. We're going to just do it all here. So let's get rid of this header, start with, and let's come in. And the first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to import a ton of stuff at the top here. So I'm just going to paste all this in right here. So a lot of this is just styling. So that's the Material UI stuff, the core, the just icons and different stuff. And then we're going to use a text field here. So that is all good. We're going to be using useEffect, useRef, and useState from React. So make sure we have that. This is the copy to clipboard that we're going to use to copy our ID so we can send it over to the other user. Simple peer, again, that's our peer-to-peer connection, and our socket.io. So that is good. So now let's come down here, and above, outside of our actual app function here, let's create our socket. So let's go const socket. And that's going to equal io.connect. And then let's pass in the route that we want to hit. And for us, that's HTTP, and then it's going to be : / and we're going to be at local host 5000. Now that's again where our backend's running, so that's why we're hitting that route. Okay, so that is looking good. Now let's come into here, and we have a ton of state that we're actually going to want to use. So I'm going to paste this in, get this going, so I'm not just typing out forever for you guys. So we're going to have some different states. So this is going to be the me state is going to be my ID. We're going to set the stream. We're going to say receiving call or not and set that to false. The caller ID that's what that's going to be. The caller signal that we're going to pass along. Call accepted or not, so that's a true or false again. We're going to have a Boolean. And then the ID to call. So this is who we're going to call, and we're going to pass in through the copy to clipboard there. And then the call ended or not, and our name, which we're going to pass along. So that is looking good. And then below here, we're going to have a few things that we're going to need to reference. So that's why we're using useRef here. So let's come down below and let's go const, and we'll say my video will be the first one. And that's going to be equal to useRef. And this will allow us to reference our video, which we'll be passing in through a video tag. So then come down here, and instead of my video, we're going to need the other person's video. So we'll just say user video, and that's going to be a ref. And then finally, we're going to add the actual connection. And we're going to use a ref here that we're going to say const connection ref. And this is going to allow us to disconnect when we end the call. So we'll say use ref from outside of the actual place that we're using it. Okay, so that is looking pretty good. Now let's come down, and the original stuff we're going to do is coming from our use effect. So let's come in here, and let's do a use effect. And we can come down here. And in here, let's just get rid of this here. And it's gonna just run on the initial load, so we don't need any items in there. And the first thing we're gonna do is go navigator dot media devices dot get user media. Okay, and then this is gonna actually allow us, this is what's gonna pop down and allow us to either use the webcam or not. So you'll have to say, yes, I want my webcam to be used. So that's gonna be passed in with video, and that's gonna be true, and then audio. So it's gonna ask us if it can use our audio and video, and both of those will be true. Okay, and then we're gonna pass it then here, and we're gonna pass the stream that's coming from our webcam here, and we'll do an arrow function and open this up, and this is where we're gonna use the actual stream by saying set stream, and we'll pass in that stream that it's passing from the webcam to our state of stream right here. Okay, and then we're gonna go my video, which is the ref that we created here. And we are going to say .current, and that's how you get the current object off it, and .src object, and that's going to be equal to stream, just like that. So this is going to set our ref of my video to the stream coming in from the webcam. So that's looking good. Now below this, let's come down, give ourselves a little more room to work with, and let's say socket.on, and we'll pass in me, which if you remember, let's look at our backend again. This is our first socket.emit right here. It's going to emit our socket ID. So let's pass in me there, and then that will be the ID. And inside here, we're going to set my ID here. So set me to that ID that's being passed in. That is looking good. Then let's come down below that, and we're going to say socket, if I can spell, dot on. And now we'll pass the call user, and we'll pass the data in. And in here, we're going to have a few different states being set. So let's go set receiving call like that, and we'll set that to true. Then we'll say set the caller, who's actually calling, caller, and that will be from the data. So data.from, just like that, and then set the name like that, and we'll set the name to data.name, and then set the caller signal like this, and that's going to be the data.signal, just like this. Okay, and then I think that's all we need from the use effect to start it off. So this is all the different stuff we're going to be setting on the initial load here. So let's come down here, and the next thing we want to do is to be able to actually call a user. So let's go like this and go const, and we'll say call user, and that will be equal to the ID there, and then pass this in with an arrow function. And this is where we're going to create a new peer. So this is all the stuff from simple peer. So let's pass in a few different things from simple peer. So we're going to be creating a peer. We're going to call it peer, and create a new peer object here. And then these are the different values that we're going to pass in. So initiator is going to be set to true, trickle to false. I don't actually know what that does. And then stream is going to be set to our stream there that we want. So from there, we can come down below. Make sure you're still in the call user right there. And then we're going to add a bunch of different stuff in here. So the first thing we're going to do is when the peer is created, we're going to have a socket.emit saying call user. And then we have to pass in these different values here. So the user to call, we have to pass in the ID there that we've set. We want the signal data. That's going to be the data, and then who it's from, and then the name of the person that we want to send that to. All right, so let's keep going down here. And right below that, we're just going to go peer.on. And here we're going to say on stream. And then we will pass in the stream. And then here, we're going to get that ref of user video. So this is the other person's video, .current.src object, like that. And then that's going to be equal to the stream set there. Okay, so that's looking good. And then finally here, we're going to have to add the call accepted socket. So let's come down here and we'll just say socket.on call accepted. And then that is going to be a signal like that. And then again, an arrow function, same kind of thing. And then set call accepted, because we're going to want to set our state of call accepted to true once we answer the call. And then the peer.signal, and we want to pass in the signal like that. Okay. And then the final thing we want to do is for our connection ref that we had above, we want to set that to the peer. So then eventually when we end the call, we can disable that. So we just do that by going connection ref like that .current, and we set that equal to the peer, just like that. So that's going to be equal to this peer. So then we can cancel that later on when we need to. All right, let's keep it going here. So the final kind of thing before we start doing our markup here is we want to add a new function, and it's going to be called answer call. So let's go const answer call. So we've called the user. Now we're going to actually answer the call. And we'll say set call accepted, and we'll set that to true. Then we're going to go const peer like that, and that's going to be equal to a new peer. So we'll create a new peer for this call accepted. And then again, we're going to pass in a bunch of stuff. So initiator, and that's going to be false because we didn't initiate the call. Then we'll have trickle again, and that's going to be false. And then stream again, and that'll be stream, just like that. Okay. Now we're going to have a few things. Let's come down in here and let's add peer.on. and this will be on signal, and we'll pass in the data, and we'll go socket dot emit. You can see this is kind of the same thing over and over again, but hopefully you're kind of getting the hang of it as we go. So on the answer call coming from, again, from our backend, remember all these coming from the backend here. So this is the socket.answer call. In here, we want to do what? Okay, so on answer call, we want to pass along the signal, and that's going to be the data. And then we want to also pass along who it's to, and that's going to come from the caller that we've set. All right, so we have a couple more here. Let's paste these in below here. So we have another one, these two. So we have peer.onStream, and that's going to set our current object of our user video, which isn't us, but the other user, to the stream. And then we have peer.signal. And then we also want to set the connection ref to this peer again, so we can leave the call later. All right, so that is looking pretty good. Okay, and now we want to add the ability to leave the call when we want. So let's come down here and let's go const, and we'll say leave call. And that's going to be equal to an arrow function here. Open this up and we'll say set call ended, just like that. And we'll say that is true. And then this is where we want to use that connection ref. So connection ref like that dot current again. And then we can just add a dot destroy on here and call that. And that will kill our connection ref and our connection more generally. All right, so that is looking pretty good. The rest of this is just going to be markup. So let's go through this, and I might speed through it a bit, but we'll add these as we go, and I'll go over it. All right, so we've added a few things here. It's just a title. We're going to call it Zoom-ish because it's sort of like Zoom. And then we have a container class name here, a video container class name. These are all just divs. And then this is more the meat of it. So we've come down here, and we're going to add kind of a ternary type operation right here. So if there is a stream, then we are going to show our video here. And this video is going to be of my video. So this is why we're using that ref up above to attach it to my video. We're going to say autoplay. Ours is going to be muted because we're going to mute our own. And then just a style of width here. So that's all there is for that. So we're going to show that if there's a stream. And then this video is going to be of the other user. And we're going to have a ternary here. So if the call is accepted and it hasn't been ended, so it's a live call and it has been accepted, we're going to do the same thing. And this is going to be the other user video. And that's the ref we created above again. Again, same thing, autoplay and all that. So that is looking good. And let's add a few more things as we go. All right, so we've added a bunch more stuff here, and this is just going to be mostly markup, but a class name, a div here with my ID. Then we're using a text field, and this is a material UI component right here. And this is just going to be some different styles. We're going to set the text. This is just like a text input. So the value is going to be of name, and this is going to set the name of who we want to send the call to. Then the on change is going to set the name here, and that's going to be all that. Then this is the copy to clipboard, and this is going to copy our ID, which is me, which we set in state. And what else we got? We just got a button that's material UI and an icon here. So all fairly basic stuff here. Let's give us a little more room. Okay, and then another text field here, and this is the ID of the person we want to call. So basically, we're going to get this ID, we're going to copy it to our clipboard with copy to clipboard, and then we'll send it off to our friend. And when they paste this in, that will send the call to that user. So this will set the ID to call from our value here, and that should be good. And then finally down here, we just have a call ended button. This will leave the call. So this will call our function we just wrote above, leave call, and it'll end that. And then if we come down here, we just have an ID an icon rather, and this is going to call the user, and we'll pass in the ID of who we actually want to call with that. Okay, and then that'll just print out below who the ID is that we're calling. So the final thing we're pasting in here is our answer button. So it's going to say if we're receiving a call and there's no call accepted. So if we have no call going and we're now receiving a call, we're going to print out the name of the person who's calling, and then this button allowing us to answer. And then we're going to pass in an on click here, and it's going to actually answer the call like that. And if none of this is true, then we're just going to pass in null and nothing will show. So let's go ahead and save that. And I think everything should be good. So what we want to do now is check this out. So let's come in here. We have our server running. Let's open a new window here. In that open window, let's cd into our front end, make sure. And then we'll just run yarn start like this. All right, so this is what we got going here. Looks all right. We have our copy ID, which we'll copy our ID over. We can put in our name, so Nick here like this. And then the ID to call is gonna be what we get from here. But we'd wanna pass this to our other user. So let's come over, get rid of this. Let's come over and create a new incognito window, just like this. And we can go localhost 3000 like this. And it's going to ask us if we can use our microphone or camera. Of course, that's okay. And now we got our second user like this. So let's come over here, and I can copy, let's add a name here first actually, Darwin, just like this. And then I can copy the ID from Darwin, and then we're going to paste that in because this is the ID we want to call. So we'd send that to our friend here. It's going to tell us our ID, and then this is going to be our call button. So we press call, and now I'm have an incoming call from Nick here, which we set our name to here. So we can answer this just like this. And now we got our call working. All right, so that's kind of neat. Seems to be working. Let's see if we can end the call. Okay, and then it ends it on both. So that seems like it's working. Obviously, we have the same person in both screens, so that is not how you would have it in real life, and we're getting a little bit of feedback with that, but that is just fine. But yeah, that's it. So hopefully that was helpful and got you going in the right direction. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.